It's late, your thoughts are awake. Settle in close, innersomniacs. You've always known you were quiet, but you've never known how deep that quiet actually goes. People see your silence. They see the way you slip away from parties early, the way you choose the corner seat, the way you need time alone to recharge. They see the surface. They never see the world underneath it. Because introversion isn't just a preference for quiet spaces. It's not just about being shy or liking books more than bars. Those are symptoms, surface manifestations of something that runs deeper than behavior, deeper than habit, deeper than choice. It's a whole architecture of being, layer upon layer of sensitivity and perception and inner life that most people never witness. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey, a descent, really, down through the 7 levels of introversion, from the outermost layer that everyone can see, down to the quietest, most sacred truth at the core of who you are. Are you ready? Let's descend. Level 1, the surface introvert. Shallow waters, gentle waves, shimmer. This is where it begins. The outermost layer, the version of introversion that everyone recognizes. You like quiet. You need breaks from people. They drain you in a way they don't seem to drain others. After a few hours of socializing, you feel exhausted. Not just tired, but depleted, like a slow leak of vitality that leaves you hollow by evening's end. So you withdraw. You go home early. You decline invitations. You create space between yourself and the constant demands of the social world. This is introversion as behavior, as a set of choices you make to protect your energy, as the polite explanation you offer when declining invitations. And it's valid, but it's also just the beginning, because this is the level people see from the outside. They notice you need alone time. They might call you shy or reserved or antisocial, but they're only seeing the surface. They're seeing the ripples on the water, never suspecting the depth beneath. What they don't understand yet, and what we're about to explore, is that your need for quiet isn't just a preference. It's not a personality quirk or a social limitation. It's the visible sign of something much deeper happening inside you. Let's go deeper. Level 2, the sensitive introvert. Step just a little deeper into the tidal zone where light and noise collide. This is where your senses take the full force of the world's waves before anyone else even feels them. Now we descend into the nervous system itself. At this level, introversion stops being about what you like and starts being about how you're wired. This is where we encounter the physiological truth beneath the behavioral pattern. You see, you don't just prefer quiet, you need it because stimulation hits you differently, harder, faster, more intensely. Take, for example, the noise of a crowded restaurant. It blurs your thinking, makes it hard to follow conversation, creates a kind of static in your mind that drowns out your own thoughts. And it's not just sensory. Emotional environments feel loud too. You walk into a room and immediately sense the tension between two people, the forced cheerfulness masking disappointment, the anger simmering beneath polite words. Other people might notice these things eventually. You feel them immediately, in your body, in your chest, in the tightening of your shoulders. This is what researchers call sensory processing sensitivity. Your nervous system is processing more stimuli per second than the average person's. You're taking in more data, feeling more textures, detecting more nuances. And all of this happens whether you want it to or not. It's not sensitivity or weakness. Your system is simply more attuned. But this attunement comes with a cost. The world is louder for you, brighter, more textured, more overwhelming. So you retreat not because you're antisocial, but because your highly sensitive nervous system needs relief from the constant flood of input. You're protecting something. Let's find out what. Level 3, the observant introvert. Descend past the turbulence and you'll find the quiet reef, vibrant, aware, alive, where you begin to see what others rush past, noticing every subtle shift in the water around you. This is where high sensitivity transforms into something else. At this level, introversion becomes perception. When you're not busy talking, When you're not performing or projecting or filling silence with words, you're watching, noticing, reading the room with a precision that borders on uncanny. You read body language fluently. Tone and subtext are your native languages. You swiftly pick up on the emotional weather of a space, whether it feels heavy or light or charged with something unnamed. The micro-expression that flashes across someone's face before they rearrange it into a smile. The shift in someone's voice when they're lying. The way a person's energy changes when they're uncomfortable but too polite to say so. This isn't magic. It's the natural result of where your attention goes. While extroverts are busy expressing, you're busy absorbing. While they're generating output, you're processing input. Your quietness has made you an observer, and observation has made you remarkably perceptive, which is why you know more about the people around you than they realize. You've mapped their patterns, their contradictions, their unspoken fears. You see them more clearly than they see themselves sometimes. But here's what happens with this level of perception. It makes the world more complicated. You can't just take things at face value anymore. You see too much, feel too much, know too much about what's really happening beneath the surface. So you stay quiet, not because you have nothing to say, but because you see so much that speaking feels insufficient, like trying to capture an ocean in a sentence. Your silence isn't empty. It's full, overfull even, and this fullness is about to turn inward. Level 4, the internalizing introvert. Sink into the twilight layer, where sunlight fades and everything slows. This is where your thoughts deepen, folding inward like currents carrying secrets no one else can see. This is where the descent becomes real, where we move from observing the world to processing it internally. At this level, everything you see and feel gets pulled inside, turned over in your mind like a pearl you study from every angle. Someone says something hurtful, and while others might react immediately, you absorb it to understand not just what was said, but why it was said, what it means, whether there's truth in it. This is introversion as cognition, as the habit of processing internally before expressing externally. Where others react quickly, you're running multiple layers of analysis simultaneously, reading context, inferring meaning, considering implications, feeling the emotional weight of information as it arrives. You feel before you speak, reflect before you react, consider before you conclude. This isn't overthinking, or at least, it's not just overthinking. It's depth of processing. It's the way your mind works. You can't not do this, any more than you can choose not to breathe. Everything goes through your internal filter first. Every conversation gets replayed. Every interaction gets analyzed. Every emotion gets examined. And this creates a strange effect. You're often several steps ahead in understanding, but several steps behind in responding. By the time you've fully processed something, the conversation has moved on. The moment has passed. So you hold your insights quietly. You carry your understanding inside. You become a person whose richest thoughts remain unspoken. Not because you're timid, not because you lack confidence, but because your internal world has become so active, so elaborate, so consuming that it takes time to translate it into words others can understand. Your inner life has become more vivid than your outer life, and this is where something crucial happens, where introversion stops being about how you interact with the world and starts being about how you protect yourself from it. Level 5, the protective introvert. Travel further down, into the midnight zone where even sound softens. Here, silence becomes armor, and only the creatures built to survive the pressure can exist. Now we arrive at the level of boundary, of self-preservation. Because at this point, you've learned something important. Not everyone is safe for your inner world. Not every space can hold your sensitivity. Not every person deserves access to your depth. So you start withdrawing, strategically, saying no to invitations that would cost too much, avoiding people who don't understand your need for depth, who don't reciprocate, who don't see you. Because your solitude is sacred. It's where you restore not just energy, but identity, where you remember who you actually are beneath the social adjustments and careful calibrations. where your thoughts can unfold at their natural pace without being rushed or simplified or performed for an audience. You reject making yourself smaller, quieter, less yourself. This is the level where people might start calling you distant, aloof, hard to reach. They don't understand that you're not rejecting them. You're protecting something precious, your authenticity, the version of yourself that only emerges in safety. But here's the difficult truth I need to share with you. Protection creates separation. The more carefully you guard your inner world, the more isolated you become, even from people who might actually understand if given the chance. The boundaries that preserve your authenticity also prevent others from accessing it. You become so skilled at protecting yourself from draining interactions that you start protecting yourself from all interactions, even the ones that might nourish rather than deplete. And you feel this as a particular kind of loneliness, not the loneliness of being alone, you're comfortable with that, but the loneliness of being surrounded by people who only know the protected version of you, the surface performance, the carefully managed exterior that keeps everyone at arm's length. But you've made peace with this reality, and that takes us to where the real you actually lives. Level 6, the inner world introvert. Enter the abyss, where darkness isn't emptiness but imagination. Strange, luminous worlds flicker to life here, the private universe you've built away from surface noise. This is where we enter the palace, the hidden kingdom, the rich, elaborate world that exists entirely inside your mind. At this level, introversion becomes landscape, architecture, an entire universe that you inhabit more fully than you inhabit the physical world around you. You have a vivid inner life, not just memories but entire emotional territories you can return to that have texture and weight and consequence. You replay moments obsessively, not always by choice, but because your mind returns to them, not to ruminate, but to understand more fully. You create entire narratives in your head, stories about who you are and who you might become, alternate versions of your life vivid enough to live in. This isn't escapism, it's meaning-making. It's how you process experience, understand yourself, and construct your identity. You see, some people live from the outside in. They encounter the world and bring pieces of it inside. But you live from the inside out. Your inner world is primary. The external world is where you go to gather material, but you always return here to this internal space to make sense of it. For most people, these worlds exist in balance, but for you, the true self lives almost entirely in the interior dimension. It's where you feel most real, most yourself, most aligned with something fundamental. And this creates a strange double consciousness. You're here and not here simultaneously, present enough to function, engaged enough to appear normal, but always slightly removed, watching your own participation with a kind of gentle detachment. You've wondered if this makes you disconnected or dissociated from life, if there's something wrong with living so much in your head while your body goes through the motions in the external world. But what if I told you this isn't pathology? What if this interior orientation is simply how your consciousness organizes itself around meaning? What if your inner world isn't a retreat from reality, but the place where reality becomes most meaningful for you? This is why solitude doesn't feel lonely to you, because you're never alone in here. You have entire worlds to explore, depths to plumb, mysteries to sit with. Your inner world is vast, infinite even, and at the very center of it, at the deepest point of this descent, there's one more level, the truest one. Level 7, the core introvert. And finally, at the deepest level, the ocean trenches, where even the currents fall silent, you reach the place no sunlight has ever touched. Here, in the stillness beneath all pressure and expectation, you meet the version of yourself that has never needed to perform, adjust, or shrink. This is the bottom, the foundation, the quiet core beneath all the layers, the truest depth of your introversion. No waves, no echoes, just you. At this level, introversion isn't something you do or something you have. It's not a trait or a preference or a coping mechanism. It's your essence, the fundamental orientation of your being. Many people misunderstand this. They perceive introversion as shyness or social awkwardness. But the truth is, introverts direct their psychic energy inward, toward the inner world of thought, feeling, and imagination, where extroverts discover who they are through action, through relationships, through external validation. You, the introvert, discovers who you are in stillness, in reflection, in the quiet moments when there's no one to perform for and nothing to prove. In essence, you experience meaning from the inside out. Joy, when you feel it, comes from inner resonance more than external circumstance. Pain, when you feel it, lives in the gap between your inner world and the outer world's failure to recognize it. You are, at your core, someone who lives inwardly, who finds truth in depth rather than breadth, who knows themselves best in silence. Your center of gravity is internal. The world feels secondary to your inner reality, not unimportant, but not primary either. This is not a flaw. This is not something to overcome or fix or balance out with forced extroversion. This is who you are. This isn't a choice you make. It's the way you're built. The architecture of your soul, if you want to call it that. Your introversion isn't a limitation. It's a form of intimacy with yourself, with your own consciousness, with the strange, beautiful, complicated reality of being alive and aware. Down here, in the quiet pressure of your deepest self, silence becomes truth. So here you are, at the bottom of your own quiet, from the surface behavior to the core of your being, through all 7 levels. And what you've found is yourself, whole, complete, exactly as you're meant to be. And maybe you're realizing that you've been living at multiple levels simultaneously, that you've experienced all of these layers, sometimes in the same day, sometimes in the same moment even. That's the truth of introversion. It's not one thing. It's a descent, a deepening, a journey inward that most people never take because they never have to. But you do. You always have. Your whole life has been this movement toward depth, toward interiority, toward the quiet center where your truest self lives. And here's what I want you to understand. Every level you've descended through has been exactly what you needed to become who you are. You weren't broken or deficient or wrong. You were becoming more yourself with every descent, every retreat, every choice to honor your need for quiet. You weren't running from connection. You were learning what real connection requires, the kind that honors your depth instead of asking you to flatten it. You weren't avoiding the world. You were building an inner one, rich enough to sustain you. Drift off or dive deeper. I'll still be here in the quiet hours, innersomniacs.